Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our second week of IT learning. We had some really great sessions last week, and I hope you were able to embrace your curiosity and attend many of those. And we have many, many more on tap for this week as well. So please go out to the go/ITLW site and check out what is out there for this week and enroll. I'd like to thank those of you here attending in person for braving the frigid weather. I know it was really cold out this morning. And also to those of you attending out in Wowza and tuning in with us today. Before I introduce our keynote speaker, I'd like to take a moment to throw out some thanks. I want to thank Megan Berducci for leading the IT Learning Weeks here. She's done an awesome job in pulling this together for all of us. And also the rest of our IT Learning Services team with all the effort they put into planning this event and executing upon it. And our AV Teams Services, partnering with you all and helping us with all the Wowza events. And of course, all of our amazing speakers that we've had, for them volunteering their time and their expertise. So thank you all, really appreciate it. And now for our keynote address today. Cyndi Masters is a local Louisville entrepreneur, and she'll be presenting If and Then Isn't Just for Code. For many of us here in IT, we think of if and then used to make code stronger. Well, it's also a thought process that we can incorporate into our daily lives. It applies to our home life and our work life to help our one's life be stronger as well. So Cyndi Masters used this if and then process to rise above life's challenges. And I'd like to give a warm welcome to Cyndi Masters as she shares how this can help us both with our home and work life.
Thank you. Okay, hi, my name's Cyndi Masters. I'm the CEO and founder of DBS Interactive. And If and This isn't just for code. It's a way of life. In my life before DBS, I owned a publishing company. And on the outside, I looked pretty put together. I was 34 years old, I owned a business, I was in good shape, I made a reasonable amount of money, but I was unhappy. I essentially had golden handcuffs. I was too afraid of losing what I had to risk possibly chasing a new dream. Now, I was stressed all the time. I was propelled by fear. It's funny, I had so much that I was afraid there wasn't going to be enough. I had put myself pretty much into a complete state of burnout. I was working against the grain, forcing myself to do something, forcing myself to show up for work every day for my clients. Now, everybody has different sets of de-stressors. Some people go home and have a cocktail. Some people go jog. For me, I had a Harley Davidson. And there was something about being in the wind that all of a sudden that unhappiness went away. I was free. I didn't have to think. I could just be. Now, in 1998, a long time ago, I was 34, so that tells you I'm pretty old now. But in 1998, February 1 here in Louisville, Kentucky, was unusually warm, not like today. It was really warm, and I got on my Harley, and I got on Interstate 65. And for those of you that are from here, it's where really every interstate in the Midwest sort of intersects. And I was doing maybe 65, 70 miles an hour, and the next thing that I know, somebody's coming over in my lane. So I'm going to drive out of that, right? That's what you do when you ride. But over in the emergency lane, there was this big concrete kind of thing that wouldn't let me ride into that, or I would have hit it head on. So the next thing I know, boom, I'm hit. And according to the police report, I was catapulted 17 foot in the air. I came down. Now, there's a car that's driving down the center lane of Interstate 65. So imagine that that's you. You're driving down the highway and plop, I landed on their hood. Then I rolled off that car and that car drove up me. Now, I can never surprise anybody at this point in my talk that I lived, but I did. But not without an awful lot of consequence. So I had a traumatic brain injury. I have a spinal cord injury. My lungs were collapsed. My heart got shifted to the left. My face was shredded by the undercarriage of the car. When I finally got out of the hospital and rehab, my friends took care of me. I was really involved in the community, and I'm still extremely grateful for that because people had to drive me. I had seizures. I couldn't drive myself. I couldn't get to my appointments. I couldn't take care of myself. I also lost everything I owned, including the business. I wound up on Social Security disability. They fast-tracked me, and I wound up on food stamps. So I went from having this reasonably successful life to, in a moment, there was nothing left of it. You know, I had always placed a certain amount of my value on that I was reasonably attractive. And now I look like this. I've had over 20 surgeries reconstructing my face. And my intelligence, I had always fancied myself reasonably intelligent. But after the accident, I couldn't remember your name 5 minutes after I met you. And so that was gone. And then I'd always been able to start businesses. It was my gift. And it allowed me to make more money than a lot of my peers. And so that was a source of pride. Now, I don't think we can take much credit for intelligence or looks. However, I still managed to. But in a moment, all of that was gone. So where was my value going to come from? What was going to matter of me? I was very isolated, and I'm a social person. Now, this was 1998, and not a lot of people had internet in their home. And so I had a friend that was a programmer, and he brought me a used computer that he had recycled. And so I was on a modem internet connection. You remember that, and AOL was just beginning. And so what it gave me was a window to the world. So it let me begin to remap my brain. It allowed me to play games with other people, and it also gave me a sense of community. And I think that when we have community, that we tend to get better, and I did. I started to get better. It gave me a window to the world, and maybe that I could participate in life again. Life threw me a 404. Now, the wreck was a page that I couldn't plan for. It wasn't even in the realm of possibilities. I don't think it is for most people. You know, I think that life does that to a lot of us. But I didn't believe that my life collapsing around me and essentially losing all the things that I thought made my life valuable, I didn't think that that meant that I was a failure. And that was a gift that I can't take credit for. You know, the fact that the things that I thought gave me value, money, intelligence, and moving forward, not being able to do that. So you're going to hear a lot about iterative. This is my first time speaking to a virtual audience. So there's going to be a little iterative because I can't see you. And I'm like, oh, have I lost them? But basically my big gift was that I didn't feel like a failure. I just felt like I had to start over. And I was open to the possibility of hope. Now, I've always had a plan A, B, C. I think that most successful people do. My plan B had always been that if my business failed, I'd go be a salesperson for someone. If you're a good entrepreneur, you are a good salesperson, or you probably won't make it. Now, one of the people that I met on the internet was the guy that started the first web development company here in Louisville. And his name was Jeremy. Now, nobody was going to hire me. I looked like this and I was having seizures. But what Jeremy was willing to do was give me a commission-only sales job working for him. Now this was a different time because we were selling websites here in Louisville, and there were still companies that said, we didn't think this internet thing was going to take hold. We don't think that this is going to work. We don't think that this is going to last. And somehow, even though I didn't always understand what I was selling, I believed, because the internet had been my window to the world, I believed in the possibility of what it could do for people. I believed that the internet and that the web could make the world a much fairer place. I believed that it could let people that are in a wheelchair participate in shopping. It could let people that were completely isolated have a full and complete life, and I fell in love with it. And so because of that and because of my passion, even though I didn't understand the technology and couldn't even remember the right words to tell people, somehow they were willing to buy from me and they trusted me. Now that company got acquired. It was the .com era, and people liked to buy anything that was like technology. And so we got acquired. And when they got acquired, I got a salaried position, albeit a relatively small salary. And my life was wide open again. There was a great deal of possibility and hope for me. Now in code, we try to predict and catch errors, and we plan for failure. In the rearview mirror, my life was paralleling code. It was paralleling this whole agile process. You know, the acquisition, you know, it landed me in the salary position, and it gave me a real opportunity for a future that none of us could have predicted. So I was trying, you know, try, catch, fail. And there were errors because of my memory. You know, I could predict that I was going to have memory errors because I have a brain injury. And there was a phone, there was no iPhone, there was a BlackBerry. And I could time things, and I could make sure that I remembered where I was supposed to be and what I was supposed to do. And so it allowed me to catch errors. What I couldn't predict, and none of us can, are failures, which is why it's important that we plan that there will be failures. And I couldn't predict that I was going to get cancer. So 3 months into this job, I got cancer. I'm 36 years old. I got breast cancer. It wasn't early. It was advanced. And I ended up spending the next year doing chemo and radiation. At the end of radiation, and I was still on Social Security disability. I had gone on the working plan. And so I was able to go back on Social Security disability. By the time I got finished with radiation, again, it was the .com era. People bought companies, didn't hold them accountable for any profitability or results. And then the companies crashed and burned. And that's what happened with our company. So I didn't have anything to go back to again, and I was almost in the same position I was in after the wreck. But I thought to myself, well, I could start a web development company. Now, mind you, I can't do anything it takes to build a website, but I thought I could start a web development company. At the same time, when I was in the hospital in Kentucky, they repealed the helmet law. At the same time, they enacted the Traumatic Brain Injury Trust Fund. I was one of the first recipients of that trust fund. And so I had a lady come into my house. I wish I could remember her name, but it was early with my brain injury and I have not so much memory. And so she would come to my house because I would try to pay my bills, and I lost all of my organizational skills with the accident. And I would spread them out over the floor, and I would spend hours trying to figure out what got paid when. She would come to my house and she would help me organize. And I said to her one day, I said, guess what? She said, what? I said, I'm starting a business next week. She said, really? I said, yeah. She said, what kind of a business? I said, technology. She said, really? You can imagine what she thought. But here's what she said. She said, if you need help organizing there, let me know. See, she didn't bust my dream. She didn't say, because I see your limitations, there's no way you can do that. And the truth is, she probably changed my life. Had she said there's no way you can do that, I doubt that I would have DBS. And we have global clients. We're a really great company. We're as good as any other web. I'll put us up against anybody in the country. Now, by the time that I started DBS, I didn't have any money. I spent it all paying medical bills from what I made for that little time at a job. I had $1,700 to my name. I was working out of Day's Coffee Shop on Bardstown Road, for those of you that know where that is. I didn't have business cards. I can't build a website, but I somehow am going and getting people to do work that I can't pay them for, and getting businesses to agree to give me small deposits without a contract because I didn't have contracts. And out of that ended up rising to be DBS. Now, I was at DBS and we were working and moving along, and I had about 2 employees, and we were maybe 9 months to a year into DBS, and I started falling and I couldn't get up. And so what had happened is, in the accident, my spine had been pushed forward and my spinal canal had been stretched. And so they had to go in and cut part of my spinal canal and support it with a bunch of hardware so that I could keep moving. Now, I was supposed to have a year recovery. I was in the hospital a month. You're Humana. You know that's a long time to be in the hospital. So I was in the hospital a month. I came out. I was supposed to have a recovery of a year. But my business was too fragile for me to stay home. My business was too fragile for me to keep, doing rehab. So I went back to work on a little walker. And we moved on and we progressed iteratively. Now, I would like to tell you that that's where it all ends. DBS just grew real big and I lived happily ever after. But that's really not the truth. What happened was about a year and a half after that, I was moving forward. I had a house again. I had a Victorian house with really high ceilings. My life was back in gear. It was full, it was whole, it was rich. And I was going to turn my attic into a master bedroom. And so I had a contractor there and I'm showing him the attic, and somehow, it's hard to believe now, but somehow I slipped through the rafters and I fell in the doorway below. I landed on my neck. My C5 vertebrae split in half. I was paralyzed from the chest down. I wound up in Baptist East Hospital here for 3 months. They removed my C5 vertebrae. I'm a lot like Legos. I'm rather proud of it, but I got an infection in the wound. So it was touch and go whether I would live again. Now, I'm there 3 months. I've got clients literally calling me at the hospital saying, Cyndi, I don't want to leave you, but if you're not able to come back soon, I will have to. Because my business was only a few years old, and while I had some employees, it didn't have the stability to be sustained without me. You know, that's the dream of every entrepreneur, that would happen, but I wasn't there yet. So, in spite of that, I ended up getting mobility again, as you can tell now. There just are no surprises here. But I ended up being able to walk again. And when I went home, I was still having IV antibiotics. I had to get them every morning. I had horrible insurance, and so I wasn't able to get them at home. I had to go get them get them somewhere else. I had to have people drive me. I couldn't drive, and I had to go back to work. So I got people to take me back to work on a little walker. Now, I was heavily medicated. When your central nervous system gets completely exposed, it's extremely painful. And so I was on some of the medication that's causing heroin addicts to overdose now. I was on fentanyl patches, Oxycontin, and I went back to work like that. And I absolutely don't recommend it because I was an idiot. Now, I don't think my business would have survived had I not gone back. But because I was heavily medicated, on top of a brain injury, what I was the worst boss you've ever seen. I was reactive. I mistreated people. I pushed and pushed and pushed. And somehow DBS survived in spite of me. Now, I don't say any of this for sympathy or to brag, but just to show you that life is life. It can't be predicted. Look at Katrina. Look at the California forest fires that happened in this last year. Nobody can predict that. People have to come out of the ashes all the time. Life is life. My motivation for putting together this talk was, I was at a luncheon And the keynote speaker at the luncheon kept telling people to look back in their life and see where, if they had only made a different decision, how different their life could have been. I thought, that's horrible. That's horrible. You can't change your past. You know, nothing's good's gonna come from that. And then I've heard so many speakers that just say, put the blinders on, set a goal, don't let anybody discourage you. Don't do anything, don't feel fear, just go. Jump off the cliff, it'll be fine. They suggest that you can simply change your past or will your way through fear and act as if that fear doesn't exist. Well, fear's a dream stopper. It's the emotion that motivates more decisions than any other emotion in our library of feelings. And bullying through fear is not a solution. I've got lots of experience with bullying through fear. Fear always exists. It's a natural part of us. You know, think about it. You know, the antelope and the cheetah. It's important that the antelope's afraid of the cheetah. You know, but on the other hand, when I push through and I pretend I'm not afraid, I become like the deer in headlights. I become paralyzed with fear because I'm ignoring it, and now it begins to own me. I land in a complete state of anxiety when I pretend I don't have fear. When I use try, catch, fail principles in my life and essentially live agilely, my fear doesn't have to own me. It becomes a part of my planning instead of something that blocks me from moving forward. Now here's a little secret. Although they don't talk about it, most successful people that I've ever met operate a lot like code. They operate a lot like code with agile methodology. They take into accounting all of the variables and plan for, if I jump off the cliff and there's not a safety net, then what? In other words, they plan B. Now, a few years ago, I developed another plan B. And my company is doing great. I didn't need a plan B for financial. I didn't need a plan B. I don't think my company is going to fail, but it could. I started a company called Mighty Small Homes, and it's a high-performance small and tiny house kit business, and it's a tremendous amount of fun. I love it. I love the community. I love what it stands for. I love the sustainability. But the reason I started it was because I'm an entrepreneur, and I founded a company. And in reality, most of the time, the founder of a company is not the person that should lead it into its next generation of success, which means that I'm going to become obsolete in my own company. And my ego is extremely attached to being the CEO and founder of DBS and leading that. And so how do I begin to move away from it and not be afraid? How do I know that's coming? How do I catch that error before it happens? How do I help it not become a complete failure because I stay there longer than I belong there? So I got busy. And so I am not away from DBS. I am still leading DBS. And I spend a percentage of my time in Mighty Small Homes. But as DBS continues to grow, I will spend more and more time in Mighty Small Homes. And my identity will become less and less attached to DBS. Now, for some of you, you know, we all are going to need Plan B, but for some of you, it may be your risk may be very different than mine. You know, most people are not entrepreneurial. Your risk may be, am I willing to take that management position that I'm afraid I might not be able to handle? You know, am I willing to do that? You know, and I don't know what your Plan B doing that would be. Maybe it's permission to come back and do the same job you're doing. Maybe it's permission to learn a different talent, to move to something else. You know, I'm a project manager, but I really love the code that the people around me are doing. Am I willing to risk learning how to code so that I can make a move? You know, what if it doesn't work? What's my Plan B? You know, I think all of us have to be willing to take certain risk in order to have anything close to a happy life. You know, planning for failure allows us to not be afraid of it. You know, while pretending it's not a possibility leaves us completely paralyzed. Tenacity is an attribute that almost all successful people have, but it's no guarantee for success. And what most successful people don't tell you is that there's 1,000 failures leading up to their success. You know, planning for failure is common sense. It's not a lack of commitment to your dream. You know, it's just part of the process, and it's something that code certainly teaches us. Now, this is the Waffle House. I'm friends with some of the founders' family. This is the original Waffle House from the 50s. Now, look at the shape of that building. Mr. Rogers is who founded the Waffle House. That building is shaped exactly like a 1950s shoe store. And the reason that that building is shaped exactly like a 1950s shoe store is because if Mr. Rogers failed in the Waffle House, that building was going to become a shoe store. Now, I love code because we're forced to look through all the variables. Agile planning takes into consideration as many possibilities as conceivable, but understands that there are no perfect plans. So we assume that we try generally with a minimal viable product. That just means that we do something that's enough to get it out there. And then it's an iterative process from there. We grow through continuous improvements, from trying, from planning and catching errors, and then planning for failures so that we have, you know, multiple options. And then we A/B test those options against each other, even if they're not needed for failure. Now, after my wreck, I was an MVP. I was a minimally viable person. I was just enough to get started. And when DBS was founded, it was a minimally viable product coming out in the coffee shop, just enough to barely exist. But we, both DBS and myself, we have continually improved. We've done iterative development. We've tested different things. I've tested things with myself personally, personal growth. How far can I push my brain? How far can I push my brain before it locks me down? How far can I push DBS? What can we do? Think about DBS. When DBS was founded, Yahoo was the #1 search engine. There was no Wikipedia. Google was barely a thought. So we've had to iteratively adapt and try things. We were a Microsoft shop when we started. We're an open source development shop now, you know, focused really almost exclusively on the web and browser-based apps. When I originally founded DBS, our legal name is Digital Business Solutions Incorporated. We were originally an LLC. But as we evolved, we became more of an agency. So now we do business as DBS Interactive. Several years in, because my accountant suggested it, I became an S corporation. So in other words, Agile lets me change. It lets me catch an error before it becomes a failure, and it lets me keep moving. Now, motivational speakers often message, be single-focused, put the blinders on, to anything at all that's going to stand in your way. What I encourage you to do is to acknowledge what will stand in your way. Acknowledge that you're going to have lots of fear anytime you take a risk or something changes. It's the human condition. Everybody has it. It's okay. Embrace the possibility of failure. What's the worst thing that happens? What's your plan B? Invest in yourself. It's the least risk and the greatest investment that you'll ever make. Laugh a lot. Take care of your health. You know, feed your spiritual life, whatever that means to you. Take care of your romance and your finance. You know, that's going to pay the biggest dividends of anything that you ever do in your entire life. Especially when you need to rise up from failure and execute your plan B, C, or D. It takes a lot of courage to take risks. That's why so many of us don't do it. Without a plan for errors and failures, most of us won't. We just won't. We won't take the risk for the next thing. And most of us will wind up in a life that's quite unsatisfactory because we're unwilling to take risks. We're unwilling to go for the management position. We're unwilling to go try code. And we'll settle for that. And think, what if I had, and if only. So think code, plan for all the possibilities, take a deep breath of courage, and jump off the cliff. But not without a parachute. I appreciate you having me here. I'm open to questions. You know, it's interesting. My life since the wreck, and I'm so grateful I had it, is such a better life than if that had never happened, because it allowed me to take risk. So I don't know if you have anything for me or if I'm done.
First thing, I'd love to give you a round of applause.
So many people are commenting on your courage and your strength and your perseverance, Cyndi. We're all just amazed by you and your ability to bounce back after setback, the many setbacks that you faced. I don't see any questions as of right now. Just a lot of comments about just how inspirational you are, and your story is just, it's amazing.
I really appreciate you having me here, and
we appreciate you coming and talking to us.
And for bearing with me, never having done a virtual presentation before. It's really strange not to see what you look like. It's like, oh, I've lost them. They're bored.
No, they're not.
Cyndi, I've got a question for you. I'm a person of faith, religious faith, and I'll, before asking my question, I'll let you know that here at Humana, in the last, I don't know, couple of years maybe, we're experimenting. I suppose experimenting is the right word. We're introducing the concept that it's okay to bring your whole life, your whole self to work. Whereas in the past, in the 60s, 70s, previously, even later, you know, there were certain things you didn't talk about at work. You didn't talk about religion, you didn't talk about politics, you didn't talk about, you know, that's your personal life, and you separate that, you build a big wall. So I will tell you, before I ask my question, I will tell you that generally, I mean, we still avoid conflict. You know, don't get in a big political argument at work.
Right.
But if you want to talk about your family, if you want to talk about your faith with someone at work, where it's appropriate, you know, break time or something, that's okay. So with that, so my question to you is, I can't imagine going through what you went through and being knocked down and getting up so many times without some kind of faith. Now, maybe that's faith in yourself, maybe that's faith in a God or whatever, but that's the question that jumps out to me is, you know, is what kept getting you, what kept helping you get up time after time?
A couple things. One is that I believe love's the answer no matter what the question is. And that's at work, at home, anywhere. And I am a person of faith. I believe in a loving God, period. And that's my only description. And I actually give a talk about what you just talked about, which is the compartmentalization of our lives and how miserable that makes us. And that's really what the gift of my wreck was. I couldn't compartmentalize anymore. All I could be was all of myself, you know. And so when we live factions lives, it's so painful. I had a really cool spiritual experience on the highway that I'll share. I don't usually share it at a corporate talk, but you've given me permission. When I was laying in the middle of the highway, my lungs were collapsed. I could not breathe. And I didn't know that I'd been drove over. But I got so afraid, because when you can't breathe, you know you're dying. And I knew I was dying. And I let go in the most absolute way I've ever let go. You know, if you think about it, you know, dying is scary because it's the unknown. And when I let go, I had the most beautiful experience I've ever had in my life, and I got wrapped in white billowy clouds of love and nothing but love. And it's really where my definition for all of my spirituality comes from. It was the safest, most awesome place that I have ever been. And I'm so grateful that I got to have that. And so for me, it's never been a question of not getting back up. You know, I I have loved people. I spend a lot of time in the community. They call me Pro Cindy-O. I sit on so many nonprofit boards. Before that, I volunteered at Maryhurst. I volunteer. I spend a lot of time helping other people because to me, that's where the juice in life is. So like, that's my biggest accomplishment. When somehow I can touch you just a little bit and make your life a little bit better, it makes my life completely worthwhile. I'll tell you a story I tell other places that I don't usually tell at a corporate presentation, but you gave me permission. So after the wreck, when I was home and I was having all of that, like, what's going to become of me? What's going to become of me? They brought some of those girls I used to mentor to my house. And they would come in and they say, tell Cyndi what you told us in the car on the way over. And those girls would say, because they take one look at me, I look like this, right? And so pretty soon they talk and they'd say, well, Cyndi, wow, my boyfriend left and I don't know how I'm going to go on. I'd have a seizure and she would feel better. And so what happened was at that time, I was useful. Now I didn't know because all I knew was when people came to my house, they were kind of sad. And when they left my house, they were kind of happy. And I felt a little bit like Gandhi. It was like, I didn't know why, but it was enough that I had purpose. And really at the end of the day, that's what we need. We need purpose and we need permission to have purpose not be the way that the rest of the world looks and to let it show up through how errors show up in our life and how failures show up and how we get redirected. I've been so loved every step of the way through this. I've been surrounded with people, my family is not who took care of me. My friends did. Every time. Meals, showing up at my house, loving me all the way through this. How can you not get up? Now, when I broke my neck, I told them I didn't want to. I said, I'm tired. I'm done. I'm done. I'm tired. I don't want to live my life paralyzed. Tired. And here's what they said. Too bad. They said, we've helped you get up every time. You get up for us this time. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
So you were talking about being a business owner and being attached to the business and having to make that break with that thing that you put so much of yourself into, which also sustains you. I mean, I was an entrepreneur at the end of the .com bubble, and my foot slipped on the back of that boat, and the company went away, but I'm still here. Where do you go to find that ability to detach from that thing that you put so much creative energy into?
I think for myself, if I don't have anything else, I'm self-aware. I have to be. I get too tired and I lose my filter for my brain and I say things that come to mind. I have no filter left. So I have to be really aware when that's getting ready to happen. Go home and go to bed. And so I work really hard on self-awareness. And I work very hard on personal growth and spiritual growth. And so I know that I have an ego. It takes an ego to start a business. It takes an ego to jump into a new position. It takes an ego to do a lot of things. That's not a bad thing. But if my ego gets fed too much, it can dominate and push my life. And so my ego is what's really attached to my business. The truth is, the biggest success that I'm going to have is that my business does better without me than it does with me. That's really the dream for every business. And so it didn't happen overnight. It was about beginning to see, maybe I am not going to be the best person. I don't have the skill set it takes. And then being sad about it, because that's another part of my whole library of feelings. And then saying to myself, well, what am I capable of doing about it? Starting another business that needs me, and Mighty Small Homes needs me. And it'll need me until it gets to where DBS is. Entrepreneurs, we know how to push. That's what we're good at, push. We're not too good at smooth. And I'm not built for smooth. My life's prepared me for this.
Hi, Cyndi. You seem like you're in a really good place now. Where do you see yourself going from this point on? Is it that you're going to continue to try to grow DBS, or are you going to step away from it and focus on Mighty Small Homes, or are you going to do both? You're going to do something new?
Yes. I will always be a little part of DBS. I just don't know how big a part. And I'll move a little bit more iteratively into Mighty Small Homes. But I have a partner in Mighty Small Homes, so it doesn't all depend on me. And my part's easy for me. I market Mighty Small Homes, and that's second nature for me. So I could do that doing anything else. I'm getting invited to do this type of thing a lot, you know, and I love interacting with people. And I love the vulnerability that people are willing to share with me because I'm willing to be vulnerable. So I think this is going to be a bigger part of my life moving forward as well. The biggest thing that I want to do is I want to make a difference in other people's lives, and I want my life to matter for something. And it doesn't matter if I'm at DBS, and it doesn't matter if I'm at Mighty Small Homes, or it doesn't matter if I'm standing here. You know, can I make some small difference that makes somebody else's life a little bit better? And I deal with chronic debilitating pain every day. I lay on a bed of ice before I can get up every single morning. I don't take narcotics. I deal with all kinds of meditation and things like that to be able to move. I am broken, you know, I am broken. But somehow when I am sharing with you and I'm helping you feel less broken, I don't hurt. I don't hurt. You can't give without getting. And so I will spend my life trying to not hurt, and that will be hopefully making a difference to somebody else. I mean, I think I went through all of these things, and I've survived what so few people do. So few people survive any one of these things. So I feel like I have an obligation and a responsibility to try to make a difference. And DBS tries to make a difference. Mighty Small Homes tries to make a difference. We help with some homeless and some veteran projects. So they're not just for the sake of having a business and making money, neither one of them. They're for the sake of giving people good employment and then helping make a difference in our community. I hope that answered your question.
There are a number of questions in the town hall, Cyndi. Your story is so moving. Someone is wondering if you can talk about this. How do you support someone who is making a bad health choice because of fear? For example, deciding not to have a life-saving surgery because they're afraid of not waking up.
Well, you can't change somebody's mind because it's their life and it's their body. For me, what I can do is I can share my personal experience with fear. And I can share where I've been afraid. And I can share what I've done to overcome that. And I can share when I've had a life-changing decision that, like, you know, am I going to wake up? I need 2 surgeries right now. And I'm putting them off because I'm busy. And also, I've had a lot of surgeries. How long am I going to press my luck? Now it's not life-threatening. But if I'm going to die one way or the other, I personally am going to take the gamble. You know, I'm going to take the gamble. But I can't fix you. I can only love you and share with you. When my friends, when I didn't want to get up, they said, please get up for us. And I did. That's all that I know.
Thank you for sharing that. There's some other questions.
Okay.
One of them that's kind of related. What would you share with a person that waits to jump but is scared that the parachute won't open?
That's all of us. Have plan B, C, and D. So if the parachute doesn't open, what's your other plan? What's your other plan? So in other words, I started DBS. What if DBS didn't make it? What was I going to do? Well, I was going to go sell for somebody else. What if that didn't work? Well, maybe I would find a different business to start. But it wasn't like that was my only option. And so as long as I know that that's not my only option, I think sometimes we take this big risk. And it can be even taking, you know, a management position. It can be anything. So I take this big risk, and I think it's the only one I'm ever going to have. This is the only chance I'm ever going to have. If I take this risk and it doesn't work, my life is over, game over. And that's just not true. We all have lots of opportunities. Life is long. Life is long.
Awesome, thank you. If it's okay, there are more questions. Judy asks, when faced with unknown fears that one cannot remember that may come through the body remembering, with your memory gone, did you have any PTSD moments, and how did you handle those?
I have lots of them. I live with PTSD. You can't go through all the things that I have and not. And so it's the same thing as for everything else. You know, I meditate in the morning every morning. And it's really hard because my life is so busy that I think I didn't have time to do that. I need to go to work. I'm running businesses. I'm doing things. I'm building houses. I'm blah, blah, blah. And then if I don't meditate, I will crash and burn that day. I promise I won't be my best self. I won't be as kind. I won't be as anything. But by meditating, I put myself in perspective. And then the other thing that I have to learn, and I'm still learning this, is that when something erupts up inside of me, which is what happens when you have PTSD. Something erupts up inside of you, and you don't know why it's erupting. You're reacting completely inappropriate to something that's happening right now, and it's because something happened way back and you can't put the dots together. My responsibility, I can't help that. I can't make that stop. I'm unwilling to take medication to make that stop. So what I can do is I can be familiar with the eruption, and I can be willing to go home. I can be willing to leave the situation, and it's hard, and it takes a lot of discipline, and I get it right about 85% of the time. You know, that's an error. So when we think about it in this agile code way, that's an error I can predict is going to happen regularly in my life. So how do I catch it? And what's my plan if I fail with it? Because the worst thing for me is when I fail with it, because when I fail with it, almost every time I hurt someone's feelings. And the worst thing for me in my whole life is when I hurt someone else. I hate it. So I can't apologize. I can try to make it better, and I can try to do something different in the future, and that's all that I can do. And I think that's part of it. It's like accepting that there's a glass ceiling to this thing called life, and it's humanness. I never get to be beyond human. I've tried so hard to be perfect. I've tried so hard to have a perfect plan, to never get it wrong, to never fall, to never make a mistake. It's just not real.
Thank you. If the first wreck had not happened, do you think that you still would have ultimately made the changes or choices, maybe is what they meant, that you did?
No. No. No, I mean, I can't predict what would have happened because I don't know, because the road turned this way. I think what would have happened, like if I was to have a crystal ball, I think what would have happened is I would have become more and more miserable. I think I would have blown through lots of relationships. I think I would have been a less than great human being because I would be unhappy. And unhappy and miserable, it's very challenging to bring a lot to the world. And I think that business would have burned out and blown up no matter what, because I couldn't have truly been present for it, or else I would have just been a miserable excuse for a human being. I think if and when that business burned out, which I believe it would have, I think that I would have risen differently. I think that we need things to fall apart to discover who we are. I think we need to have things fall apart sometimes to learn where we're supposed to go. And it's not the way that I think it should go. Like, nobody would have said, Cyndi, I hope you have a wreck and get drove over by a car on I-65 so you can have a fabulous life. Right? Would you wish that on me? No, a lot of people say, oh, I wish you didn't go through all that. Don't wish I didn't go through all that. How lucky am I went through that? You know, and we all have those things, but do we embrace it when we have it, or do we get mad? Do we get mad and say, life isn't fair? Why is this happening to me? Why is that happening to me? Why is this happening to me? The good news for me, and I can't take credit for it, is I never asked that, not once.
Someone else says, I am just speechless. You are amazing.
Huh.
Please tell us about your support network. You mentioned friends, but what about family?
I'll tell you my favorite family story, and it's a recent one. So I was adopted, and I have a very interesting young life. Another story for another day. But about 4 years ago, I met my biological niece, and I was given up for adoption for a reason. That family was incredibly dysfunctional and toxic, and she was kind of raised in it. But she had no family. They were too dysfunctional, you know, to really be able to support her in any way. Somehow she came out amazing. And she married this really nice young man. And I came into their life right then. And they had a little baby. And I didn't have any children because you heard how I spent all of my 30s. And so I started going to Florida and visiting them every 2 months. And I fell in love with that little baby. I get to be a grandma. And they moved to Louisville this year, so that to be close to me and to have me be a part of their son's life. And I couldn't be more grateful. So there's a lot of support there. I have a sister who's a rock star that I grew up with, and you know, both of us have overcome a tremendous amount of adversity. We're each other's hero. We champion each other 100%. You know, but I have a brother who was murdered, and I have another brother that lives homeless on the streets. So when you come out of adversity, but here's the thing, no need to feel sorry for me, because if I had had a childhood that looked like Beaver to Cleaver, what would have happened when I had the wreck? I would have said, why is this happening to me? But see, I had no sense of entitlement. I didn't think that I was supposed to have somebody buy my bicycle. You know? And so because of that, I never thought, why do I have these bad things happen? It's just this life. And that's my gift, and I get to share that with you. So again, I have no regrets about any of my life. But my sister, you know, none of us stayed at home past 15. And my sister, she rose up, she ended up becoming president of a company out of Italy. She's an engineer. She raised 2 kids while she went to engineering college. And she and I, we just champion each other. How lucky am I?
Very inspiring story, Cyndi. A question, is it physically possible, or would you, given the nature of your traumatic accident, ever ride a motorcycle again?
Oh, sure. I had to. So once I got better enough that I could have balance, I bought an old Indian Chief out of the old factories, very heavy bike. And I rode it because I needed to not be afraid of it. And then I thought, why push my luck? And so now I have a restored 1953 Harley Hummer that sits in my lobby. And my office is on 4th Street across from the Seal Box. So you can look in the window and see it. And it's a smaller bike than what I rode. It's a little fast track bike. But it represents rising up out of the ashes and being restored. It really represents DBS's history. Most people don't know that, but you know.
Someone here in the town hall says that you should write a book.
Yeah.
Seriously, have you thought about that?
I've thought about it. I just don't know what about. You know, when I was a little girl, my 2 big dreams when I was a little girl, before my life really got crazy, I dreamt that I would be a nurse or that I would be a writer. And I'm not going to be a nurse. I'm an entrepreneur. But I hope to spend my retirement, kind of answers your question earlier, I hope to spend my retirement writing books and helping people and hanging out. If I ever get to retire. We'll see.
We've got some people saying that they would be willing to pre-order the book today. So
are you kidding?
No.
No, it's so sweet. Thank you so much. That's encouragement. You know, you hear something 3 times, it's time to do it.
Yeah, and the title of this talk would be a great title for your book.
You know, I have thought about that. I've thought about doing this talk in like agile and how to live an agile life, and which is essentially how to go through the flow and how to let life not take over your path, but help you with predicting your path and managing your path instead of just trying to bully your way into I have a goal, let's do it. Thank you. Thank you. Whoever said that, thank you very much. Very affirming.
Cyndi, I just need to say, I'm on the ITLS planning committee for IT Learning Week, and Cindy's name came up, and I'd never heard her. I checked out her website. I was like, oh, slick website. And we heard about your topic, and then we met online, and so I was a little worried because typically when you do a keynote, you like to kind of see what they have to bring, and I just have to say I've been blown away by what you've had to share, and been very impressed. And really, for me, and I think for everybody, it's been a challenge to look at your life and look at those things that do want to hold you back because of that fear. And think about that agile methodology. I mean, us in IT, we talk about agile all the time as a business, but let's apply that to our lives. So I think this has been a phenomenal opening session for the week, and I think something that we can parade with the rest of this week is you're taking time out of your week to develop yourselves by attending these sessions. And that's one thing you shared is, invest in yourself. So taking that time, I think, is important to invest in yourself. Maybe if it's a session you think, oh, I don't think I'll get much out of that, try it, because who knows? You might you might find a new path or find something you can try. So I definitely appreciate your time today. Do we have anything else from? Yeah, more from Buzz. Yeah,
Yes.
Buzz has
There's
been
more,
moving quick.
Now people want you to do a TED Talk.
Well,
They think you should do a TED Talk, and
I don't know how to do a TED Talk, but if somebody asks me, I'll show up wherever I'm asked.
I'm not sure either what that process is, but this is one of the best presentations ever through a Humana-sponsored event. Thank you, Daniel, for your comment, and he thanks you and to those who organized this event and made it available to the company. So.
I'd like to just say one other thing. So this whole presentation ended up being very agile because I didn't have my speaker notes, and I fumbled through these papers, and I apologize if that was distracting for anyone. And but we worked through it, and it turned out. And so had I come here and I was, and I let fear dominate me because I didn't have it the way I thought it was going to be, this would have been a complete failure. I wouldn't have been able to be open to it turning out different. And I think that's just it everywhere. We don't live our life waterfall. If it doesn't work for our work, why should it work for our life?
That's a beautiful comment, or beautiful quote. I don't think we have any other questions. Just, the comments continue to come in about how inspiring you are and just amazing.
I want to say two things. One is thank you very much. And thank you for listening to me. And thank you because this actually gives all that stuff I went through value. It means that it was worth something. I want to also say that my DBS Interactive phone number is listed. You can find it on the web. And that I am always available to talk to anybody. And that my email is cyndi@DBS Interactive. And I am always open for a personal talk, for an any talk. It really is the whole point of me being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cyndi.